Hi guys, my name is Kimani Woods. I am the communications manager here at Timewise Financial, and we are so excited to offer another educational webinar for you. This one is our step-by-step legacy planning webinar hosted by Kate Moseley, and we are so excited to offer this to you. In the event that the unfortunate happens, which would be a family member like a spouse or your parents passing away, there are some things that you can have prepared and in place beforehand just to make that tragic circumstance a little bit easier. And so Kate has a lot prepared for you. There are going to be some checklists that she will mention, which we will email to you. Thank you so much for signing up for the webinar. And Kate, you can take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Kimani. Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Kate Moseley, and I am a financial advisor here at Timewise Financial. And before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping items that I wanted to go over. First, this webinar is being recorded, so if you know someone who might have missed today's presentation, this will be available later to replay via our YouTube channel. And like Kimani said, the checklist that we're going to be going over and reviewing during our presentation today will also be sent via email to everyone who registered for the webinar. So, okay, we're done with housekeeping, so let's get started. Assisting spouses and children through a loss is one of those areas that we at Timewise are very passionate about. And while a lot of folks spend a lot of time planning their retirement and their golden years, aging and end of life should also be considered. It is an inevitability of life. And like most things, it's a good idea to have things mapped out beforehand. I work with adult children who have lost a parent and with widows and widowers. And one thing that I've learned is that not having a plan in place prior to an urgent situation can make things incredibly complicated and sometimes very messy between family members. So today, I'd really like to make aging and legacy planning not so taboo. What I'm going to go over today is, first of all, what you can do right now to begin your legacy plan. Number two, what to expect after an illness or incapacitation. What happens with accounts after a death of a spouse or a parent. And four, some important financial items to consider if you lose a spouse or a loved one. And if you're a client of ours, you know we love a good checklist. So you're in luck. Like I mentioned before, we will be sending the checklist out via email to all who register. It is not easy to think about what might happen if you or a family member becomes critically ill or dies unexpectedly. Organizing your financial and legal documents can reduce stress and increase your peace of mind if your family must navigate this difficult situation of handling an illness, serious injury, or sudden death of a family member. So we did a legacy planning a while ago, and we still use this, and we provide it to our clients with this checklist. And some people put this all in a binder. Some folks will go to Walmart or Costco and get a fire safe that holds hanging file folders. You do whatever works for you. We like to think of this as your in case of emergency folders. If your kids needed to get into your house right now, would they know where to look for all of these things? So kind of be thinking about that as we go through it. The first thing we're going to do is locate your personal records. And some examples of personal records would be things like your birth certificates, social security cards, marriage or divorce decrees, citizenship papers, adoption papers, any death certificates, your military service information, that becomes really important. Another folder you're going to do is locating all of your financial information. So you're going to want to list your sources of income from employment, pensions, social security, any income you might get from your IRAs or 401ks. You'll want to document how much you're getting, when you're getting it, how it's received. For example, does it come via check or direct deposit? So one thing we see a lot of is Mom is getting $400 deposited into her account monthly, but we have no idea where it's coming from. So things like that take up a lot of time for loved ones, and try to track that down with the bank. You're also going to want to list your list of debts, your mortgage information, any credit cards or auto loans that you might have. And again, how much you owe, what's the amount of each payment, when are the payments due, how do you normally make those payments? Think about if somebody, like if you were in the hospital and somebody needed to pay your auto loan, would they know how to do that? Insurance policies is another thing you're going to want to locate. A lot of times we just buy an insurance policy and we shove it in a drawer. Get all that stuff together. Get your life insurance together, any information about health insurance plans, if you have a long-term care policy, your homeowner's insurance, and your car insurance. Get that all in a folder all together that somebody would be able to grab that. Have an investment folder. Things that have your 401k plans, any IRAs or Roths, 529s, any of those types of accounts, stock certificates and bonds, any savings accounts, property deeds and car titles. That's a long one that sometimes it takes a lot of time to track down. Get those all together. Have a folder for your tax documents, your previous year's 1090 or 1040, and any 1099s or W-2s you might have. So you're going to get all of that together. The next area you're going to want to look for your estate documentation. So if you do have a will, a power of attorney, healthcare directive, any trusts, you're going to want to get all of that together and keep that in a separate folder as well. Some other planning steps. First of all, if you do have your legal documents done, were they done a long time ago? Is it time to update them? Do you even have your legal documents in place? And if you're a Timewise client, you can get a discount through trustandwill.com, which is a DIY estate document website. So if you are a Timewise client, contact our office and we'll send you the information on how to get that discount. There's a couple other websites I put on here that I found really interesting. One's called 5 Wishes, and it helps you create an advanced healthcare directive in a very easy way. Those are not sometimes easy questions to answer. And so 5 Wishes kind of helps you walk through that. And then Go Wish, which is kind of play it on Go Fish, is a fun kind of sorting card game that will kind of help you easily start a comfortable conversation when you start thinking about planning your end of life wishes. Another thing to consider is introducing your family to your professional contacts, your CPA, your attorney, your financial advisor here at Timewise. At minimum, ask your family to sign up for our emails or follow us on YouTube or Facebook so they can at least get familiar with our faces, our videos, our blogs that we post. We love meeting your families, and they are more than welcome to be a part of our events and even annual reviews with you. We'd love to just meet them at least once, just to kind of put a face to the name. And just to remind everybody, we do more than just retirement planning. We do help millennials, Gen Xers, even a few Gen Zs with some financial planning as well. For maybe they might need some advice on buying a home. Or maybe they've got smaller kids and want to start some college planning. Maybe they're in a job transition and don't know what to do with that old 401k. Or maybe they're just now starting a full-time job and need some direction on what to do with the 401k or a Roth. Sharing is caring, everyone. Do not make this all a secret mystery that your family needs to solve during an emotionally stressful time. And remember, if you didn't catch all of that, that's okay. We will be sending out this checklist. So don't fret if you didn't get all that written down. Okay, so what happens after an illness or incapacitation? So while the account owner is still living, we cannot process any account activities or even talk about the accounts on behalf of the client without a power of attorney document. So let's say, for example, if client Mary calls us there and says, my husband, John, who's also a client, is in the hospital and he's in critical condition, and I'm going to need some funds from his IRA to pay our bills. unless we have a copy of John's power of attorney documentation showing that Mary can act on his behalf, we cannot get the funds from John's IRA to Mary. It's better to have that document already done and to give us a copy of it for us to keep on file or to your financial advisor. It's pretty common to have a severe illness or mental decline happen before a death. So the power of attorney document is a crucial piece in legacy planning. So we're going to do a case study for what happens after a death. And we're going to use Mary and John again. They are each other's beneficiaries on all their retirement accounts. And their son, Paul, is the contingent beneficiary for all of John and Mary's retirement accounts. So if John were to pass away, what would happen to his IRA? John might have various types of accounts, maybe a taxable investment account, an annuity, IRAs, etc. I want to highlight the most common type of account, which is the traditional IRA. And a traditional IRA is a retirement account that is tax deferred, and that plays a big role when it comes to legacy and estate planning. The most common option for the spouse is for Mary to assume John's IRA as her own. And if Mary already has an IRA, then they just move the funds from John's IRA into her already established IRA. And if she doesn't have an IRA already, one would be opened for her in her name. Another option Mary has is to do a lump sum distribution. Because this is a traditional IRA, meaning no taxes have been paid on this money and taxes are now due at distribution, she would need to pay federal and state income taxes on that distribution. So obviously Mary would want to consult with her financial advisor or her CPA to determine if that's a tax smart decision. Financial professionals will ask questions like, what tax bracket are they in? Or what if Mary needs liquidity in cash? Are there other tax favorable options like maybe life insurance proceeds or other assets? If John and Mary were to pass away at the same time, and Paul is a contingent beneficiary on John's IRA, Paul is a non-spouse beneficiary who is also more than 10 years younger than the deceased, his dad, so he would be inheriting dad's account. The first option for Paul would, again, have him do a lump sum distribution. And again, Paul should talk to his financial professionals to consider the value of an inherited account because, we want to know how much taxes he would pay and whether or not a lump sum distribution could bump him into another tax bracket. More than likely, Paul has a job and is bringing in taxable income already. And then you add in a large lump sum IRA distribution, that would also be considered taxable income. So that becomes kind of an important thing. The other option Paul could have is to move his dad's account into what's called an inherited IRA, and he would be subject to the 10-year rule for required minimum distributions. So we're going to go to the next slide where it shows our chart. So in January of 2020, the Secure Act 1.0 was established, and it established 3 different kinds of beneficiaries to IRAs. You have the eligible designated beneficiary, you have the non-eligible designated beneficiary, and then you have a non-designated beneficiary. So the green box here, that's your spouses and any minor children or disabled or chronically ill persons. They are an eligible and designated beneficiary. A non-eligible but designated beneficiary would be your kids or whoever else, any non-spouse in certain trusts, and they are subject to the 10-year rule. Essentially, the Secure Act 1.0 removed the ability of non-spouse beneficiaries to stretch out that inherited IRA over their lifetime. And so now it mandates that all of the funds in an inherited IRA have to be withdrawn within 10 years of receipt. Doesn't count if you're a spouse This is only for non-eligible non-spouses. So that means John and Mary's son, Paul, would have to withdraw the entire amount of his dad's IRA before December 31st of the 10th year. So, we do utilize many strategies with clients who are unsure on what to do with these RMDs or who might be worried about paying the taxes all at once. We can do smaller distributions, monthly, quarterly, or maybe once a year. And we can give those withdrawals a purpose, like reinvesting the funds into an investment account so it can continue to grow, or maybe using those RMDs to fund other goals like college, paying off your mortgage or cars or credit cards, or maybe using the funds to pay long-term care premiums. Some just use it for holiday purchases and travel. So the bottom line is that the IRS is going to get their money one way or another. Either you pay taxes a little bit at a time or you do it all at once. Another important note in that red box over there is that you want to make sure someone, a person, a trust, somebody is listed as your beneficiary. Do not leave it blank. What happens is if you leave it blank is that it'll be considered an estate account. It'll go through probate, and then the courts will decide who gets that money. And then the account will be forced to be depleted within 5 years instead of 10. So if you have questions about other accounts that are maybe not retirement accounts or not IRAs, check with your financial professional on what the best strategy may be for those things like your investment accounts, bank accounts, or other assets. Right, now to the checklist. We've got a couple good checklists that go over some items to consider if you do lose a loved one. So I want to highlight some of the important tips. The checklist that we're going to send you are going to have a lot more tips in each one of these sections. So what I wanted to cover right now are just some of the ones that I thought would be good for everyone to know. Okay. So what should I consider if my spouse passed away? The first thing you're going to want to look at is your cash flow. Are you going to be losing any pension or maybe Social Security income with the loss of your spouse? You really need to sit down and create a new income and expense plan. What money is coming in versus what money is coming out. And that really gives you a good idea of, am I going to need more or do I need less? What's going on with my cash flow? Under estate settlement, is there any property or assets that may not be yet identified? So things like points on credit cards or miles with airlines, checking to see if those are transferable is it's one of those things that people might totally overlook. So it's definitely a good idea to check on those. Also, safe deposit boxes. You need to be sure to follow probate rules when it comes to safe deposit boxes to make sure you can open. Under insurance, was your spouse or were you a veteran? There might be some death benefits, burial benefits, survivor pensions. There's a lot of other things that might be out there for veterans. So, feel free to contact our office and we can get you more information on some veteran benefits that are out there. Taxes. So were you filing your taxes married, filing jointly? So, and if you were, you can continue to file married, filing jointly in the year that your spouse passed away. The widows are going to have to adjust to filing as single starting the year after your spouse passes away. And that could be a surprising jolt at tax time if your income and expenses haven't been lowered, because you will lose the larger federal standard tax deduction and possibly any state tax deductions. So that's kind of a biggie. Investments and assets. Has the change in your circumstances altered your investment objectives or maybe your risk tolerance? So maybe you and your spouse were a bit more adventurous with your risk tolerance. But now with the loss of your spouse, maybe you feel a little bit more conservative. And it's important to have that conversation with your financial professional. And we will ask, so be prepared. And if your spouse was your beneficiary on your own accounts, it becomes really crucial to update your beneficiaries on those accounts and any estate documents to include a new person to be your power of attorney for your beneficiary. Under the other section, do you need to reduce the threat of identity theft? So that's a big thing going on right now, right? And with everyone's having a greater presence on social media, it is a good idea to designate a legacy person. I know on Facebook, for example, in the settings area, you can designate another Facebook user to be your delegate legacy person if you were to pass away. Does your spouse or loved one have your logons to the bank, email, social media, and other important websites? So, is that information somewhere where they can get to it? The last thing, somebody is, grieving, needs to worry about some hacker impersonating you or pretending to be you out there. So make sure that you have all of that information where somebody can get to it. All right, what should I consider if my parent passed away? All right, under the cash flow section is important to recognize required minimum distribution. So if your parent had already reached their R&D beginning date, meaning they were already taking required minimum distributions out of their retirement accounts, beneficiaries must satisfy any remaining RMD amount on behalf of the parent before the end of that year. So it's something to keep in mind. Estate settlement. Are there any beneficiaries that may be inheriting your parents' assets that already have more assets than they need to maintain their lifestyle? So, and for example, we have had some adult children forego their inheritance to use those funds to care for another family member instead. Obviously, you need to have your attorney draft any documents like that. But the bottom line here is that the having open and honest conversation with siblings or other beneficiaries is really ideal. But the truth is, those conversations can sometimes be difficult, and it makes things a lot easier on everybody if the parents just have their wishes already spelled out in their estate documents and via their last will and testament or a trust. Under insurance, could there be any life insurance owned by your parent, insuring the life of your parent that has not been identified or claimed? Again, this is when that legacy planning prior to the event happening becomes super handy. We have seen kids go on a wild goose chase trying to track down an old policy. Under taxes, did your parent own a home and were they survived by a spouse? If the adult child is helping their surviving parent, sometimes it's part of the overall plan to downsize. And the surviving spouse can take advantage of the capital gains tax exclusion within 2 years of the death. The adult children can have helped their surviving parent with new living arrangements, new house, long-term care needs, things of that nature with the proceeds of that primary home. Under the other section, making sure your parent's driver's license is canceled is always one of those things nobody thinks about. Just in case of identity theft, it's good to let the DMV know that the parent has passed. Okay, so I'm sure you've seen a few common themes that have popped up today. Number one, pre-planning. Procrastinating or avoiding the issue doesn't help anyone. Don't wait for an emergency to start running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Having a plan in place relieves stress, and you and your family will all know what the plan is, which leads into the second key takeaway. No secrecy. Don't keep this all a secret from your loved ones and have it be a surprise at the end. We hear this a lot. I have no idea what my parents' plan is. Have open conversation with your family members. And I get it. I understand keeping some things to yourself. You don't necessarily have to show them your financial statements if you don't want to, but at least have your legacy planning docs together and at least tell them where they can find it in case of an emergency. Involve your financial professional. Be sure to let your wishes known to your advisor or your CPA. We keep our clients' legal documents on file here if they want us to. It saves time, and then no one has to track down and scan documents when time is of the essence. Introduce your loved ones to your financial professionals too. We don't divulge any financial information unless you have legal documents allowing us to do so. We just like getting to know the family beforehand and to know that your trusted contacts are in case of an emergency. So thank you for joining us today. And just a reminder, Kimani is going to send out the checklist to all who have registered today. And if you have any questions about anything that we've covered here today, please feel free to contact.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining us for another webinar. Kate, that was fantastic. It's definitely a lot of information. If it felt like it was overwhelming, we understand that it can feel like that. One of the biggest takeaways that we hope that you're getting from this is that we are here to help you. So if you need any help, if you need any guidance, we are here. If you have a financial advisor already, then you can talk to them. But if you don't have anyone, we are here for you, and we can help you navigate through the entirety of what this process looks like.